We will now hear from Sydney Towle. I'm just looking for Sydney. Thank you. Sydney's making her way up. We're going to hear from Sydney, who's a young patient who's used social media to share her story, to share positivity. She's touched the hearts of many people around the world. She's not only given a voice to living beyond a cancer diagnosis, but has given another face to cholangiocarcinoma. We're very pleased to have her here today. Sydney, over to you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sydney Towle, and I am a current cholangiocarcinoma patient. I'm also incredibly nervous to be public speaking, so apologies. I wanted to start off by thanking you so much for letting me speak here today. This is my first time at the conference, and I'm so excited to be here and to connect with and learn from so many inspiring individuals. I'll be honest, I had a very hard time writing this. My journey, like many of ours, is ongoing, and I rarely stop to process everything, so sitting down and recollecting each moment was overwhelming, to say the least. But it also made me quite proud to relive each terrifying and challenging moment throughout this journey and realize that despite it all, I'm still here and I'm still very hopeful and optimistic. Makes me really proud of myself. Thank you. I also didn't feel like I had the knowledge or qualifications to speak here today. Navigating this journey is not easy, and I am continually learning from those around me. The cholangio community is a very special one, and I've had the privilege to connect with many individuals, like Melinda, and my friend and fellow patient Stephanie at Memorial Sloan Kettering, who have taught me what it means to be a cholangio warrior, to self-advocate, to question, to stand your ground. But then I remembered that there are different ways that we learn from one another. I've had the privilege of sharing my entire journey from start to now on social media, and in going back through my videos to write this, I reread a lot of comments and messages from those who follow me. Your videos have had a profound effect on the way I communicate with my patients. Your vulnerability has made me feel less alone in facing my diagnosis. Because of your videos, I feel like I can better understand what my mom is going through. Even messages from one of my best friends, Scarlett, who will text me every week, and she's currently in medical school, wants to be an oncologist, which is amazing, and she will ask me about my experience and all the issues I've faced so that she can be the best future doctor that she can be, which means a lot to me. So, so maybe it's not about having the answers, but in being vulnerable that I don't. And feeling scared and uncertain and alone, and knowing that to some extent we have all felt that way, regardless of what we are going through. 2 years ago, in 2023, at the age of 23, I was diagnosed with stage 4 intrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma. At the time, I had no idea I was stage 4. I actually didn't know what stage I was until a few weeks ago, when I went back through my patient notes to write this and saw the word stage 4 for the first time. It hasn't changed my perspective at all, but I did wonder why I hadn't been told before. I think part of the reason is because of my age. Every doctor I've seen has always started out with, "You don't fit the demographics for this cancer." But as I've learned, cancer doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care what age you are. It doesn't care that you're a daughter, a sister, shout out to my brother Austin, who's here today, or a friend. I'm constantly reminded by my oncologist that my age is an asset in being able to recover quickly, which I am very grateful for. But my age and lack of symptoms have also complicated my journey. In May of 2023, I had just finished a run when I looked down and noticed the right side of my stomach was protruding. I still remember taking a picture and sending it to my friends with the caption, "I think I just herniated while running." I went about my daily life despite this unusual lump in my abdomen. I continued going on long runs, hoping to run the LA Marathon the following year with my friends. I had virtually no symptoms, minus the lump, which occasionally began to burn. I vividly remember I was seeing a boy at the time and we were watching a movie when it began to burn suddenly. I jokingly, but also somewhat seriously and anxiously said, "What if it's cancer?" To which he replied, "Don't even say that, Sydney, you definitely do not have cancer." So I continued to go about normal life, but deep down I knew that something was wrong. I posted a video on TikTok around this time saying, if you never go to the dentist, you'll never know you have a cavity, as a sort of ignorance is bliss moment to try to make myself feel better. I still think about that video a lot, but from my mistakes, I have become a much stronger advocate for listening to your body and going to the doctor, even if you don't think something is necessarily wrong. Right before posting that video, I had gone on a walk around my neighborhood in Venice Beach, California. I made it maybe half a mile when my abdomen started burning so bad that I called my mom in tears, so upset with my body and so confused as to why it was failing me. She pushed me to go to urgent care and I booked an appointment for the next day. Despite the many urgent care horror stories that exist, this one was thankfully very positive. My urgent care physician, Dr. Jamie Rath, was incredibly attentive and really wanted to get to the root of the issue. His initial interpretation, like mine, was that I had an exercise-induced hernia. Yet he still referred me for an ultrasound just in case. Thank goodness he did. The funny thing about getting scans, which I'm very used to now but was not at the time, is that the people doing the scans don't actually say anything. They're not allowed to, but I didn't know that. So when the kind lady doing the scan was happy and all smiles, I assumed I was fine. That was not the case. I got a call from Dr. Rath a few days later that the ultrasound showed a 10 by 5 centimeter solid mass in my liver. He referred me for a stat MRI, my first of many now, and then I lived my last day not knowing for sure that I had cancer. I still remember picking up the MRI report the next day and dropping to my knees in the radiology parking lot upon seeing the words, innumerable enhancing masses in the liver, the largest being 12 centimeters, suggestive of lymphoma or carcinoma. Dr. Rath called me at the same time, worry evident in his voice, letting me know that he was incredibly sorry, and it was putting in an oncology referral ASAP. We hung up, and I FaceTimed my mom and brother, both living across the country. I will never forget the looks on their faces and the sobs they both released when I choked out, I have cancer. That is a statement I kept repeating that day, unable to actually process it. I went home and posted a video to TikTok, tears streaming down my face, as I said, I just found out I have cancer. Posting videos has always been therapeutic in a sense for me. It's like writing in a journal, capturing specific moments in time, except instead of keeping them to myself, I post for the world to see. I shared my life online far before being diagnosed and always found it a valuable way to form connections, to feel understood, and to feel less alone. This has become exponentially more true as I've shared my journey and connected with thousands of other patients, caregivers, and others going through their own challenges. Like I mentioned earlier, my age has been a confusing part of my journey. While it is constantly told to me to be a blessing in fighting this disease, it also feels like a curse at times. There's the obvious part of feeling like my youth is being taken away from me a bit, my life put on pause as I watch my friends continue to go about theirs without restriction. Don't get me wrong, I still feel like I try to live a normal life as possible, but there are moments when I'm sitting at chemo or feeling particularly tired and sick when I feel like everyone else is swimming in water and I'm trying to wade through jello. The other part of my age that feels like a curse is in the disbelief that comes from people not believing that I have cancer, specifically this form of cancer. When I was initially diagnosed, I was given the probable diagnosis of fibrolamellar hepatocellular carcinoma, or FLHCC, which mainly affects adolescents and young adults. I remember being in the hospital for a week during my biopsy and my oncologist at the time coming in after he read the results. So you actually don't have FLHCC. Yay, I thought. I admit, sitting idly in the hospital bed for a week led me to research this diagnosis, which yielded some slightly scary statistics. He quickly followed up with, but you actually have cholangiocarcinoma. The way he shared this, I knew that this was not a yay moment. It was not a better diagnosis, but just not the one that they originally thought. This biopsy was sent out for additional testing, given that it was poorly differentiated and that I do not fit the so-called typical demographics for someone of this diagnosis. My oncologist admitted that he wasn't convinced that it was cholangiocarcinoma given my age. This was something I would experience at each new opinion that I sought. You don't fit these demographics, I heard again and again. And the doubt didn't just come from doctors. The downside about sharing anything online is that you subject yourself to the opinions of the internet, which can be a very scary place sometimes, but also a really good one. The things that people say behind the protections of their phones are horrifying. I never thought that I would receive the level of hate that I have in sharing my journey. All I do is post videos going to chemo, crying sometimes a lot, and trying to be positive the rest of the time. Yet a few months ago, my brother let it slip that an online forum had been started about me. I thought he was joking. I really couldn't imagine that people cared enough to talk about me, let alone that what they would even have to talk about. It turns out that was quite a lot. This forum was dedicated solely to hating me, either for being too positive, which I didn't really know was a thing, or in denying that I had cancer at all. The first time I read this page, because admittedly I did fall down the rabbit hole, I completely broke down. I simply could not believe that people thought I was faking my diagnosis because I still had hair, I was still working out, I was still hanging out with friends, basically because I was trying to live a normal 20-something-year-old life despite having a rare form of cancer. I began receiving messages telling me to do terrible things, and there were messages to my family and friends, and even messages sent to my hospital and doctors asking if I was really a patient. I was in complete shock. This has not been an easy journey, to say the least, and to have my experience completely denied because I don't look sick was really upsetting. I began regretting ever posting online and nearly deleted all of my social media. But then I would see a message or comment from someone saying that my positivity has encouraged them to keep going, and I remembered why I continue to share my story online. And it's not just that sharing has helped other people, it has also helped me in so many ways. It has made me feel less alone. It has inspired me to keep showing up for myself when I really feel like giving up, knowing that there are others who are doing the same thing and who are pushing for me to keep going, to just keep swimming, as I often say. After I was diagnosed in 2023, I received 8 rounds of chemo, gemcitabine, cisplatin, and also immunotherapy in Los Angeles, with an amazing response and a 40% reduction in my main tumor after only 3 months of treatment. On my 24th birthday in November, I met with a surgeon who told me I'd likely get surgery right after the new year. Woo, I'd finally be done with this, I naively thought. Throughout this time, I really looked at everything with rose-colored glasses. I'd never really looked at statistics and tried to treat each day with a clean slate perspective. I did not realize at the time that cancer could be a chronic illness. I just wanted to go back to my life before I knew what cold capping or a port was. Right before I was supposed to fly home for Christmas with my mom, who had come to live with me temporarily to cold cap for me. Thank you, Mom. I noticed that my face and my left arm were very swollen. I knew it was a blood clot. I told my mom, and she suggested we not fly if that were the case, but I was so desperately sick of being in ERs and hospitals that I begged her just to take me home. So we spent Christmas Eve in the hospital in Virginia, and my unexpected Christmas present was blood thinners. I was thankfully still able to receive surgery in the new year to remove 80% of my liver, my gallbladder, and some lymph nodes. I had never experienced something as painful as this time, both physically and emotionally. And I had a 2-centimeter kidney stone in college that required a month-long uterine stint, so I was used to some pain. So I barely left my bed for the next few weeks, unable to walk and barely able to sit up without my mom's help. The surgery turned out to not be a complete success, meaning that I would have to resume chemo. Another small fracture took place inside me hearing this news. I was supposed to resume treatment a few weeks later, but had pancytopenia, meaning I had low counts across the board, but mainly relevant were my neutrophils, which were too low for me to continue treatment. My oncologist decided to stop chemo altogether and just pursue immunotherapy to see how my counts would rebound on their own. Over the next few months, I would end up in the hospital several times with recurring colitis that my doctor believed was due to immunotherapy, ultimately taking me off that as well after less than a month. I know that I should have questioned this or pushed for treatment or sought other opinions or done something, but the opportunity of taking a break from everything ultimately meant that I became complacent, which I now know is not the answer. This took me a few months to realize and was kicked into gear by my follow-up scans over the next few months, which showed doubling in the size of a new lesion on my liver. Suddenly the fire was turned on and I decided that enough was enough. So in November of last year, in the span of a week after these scans, I picked up my things and moved across the country to New York City. I switched my treatment to Memorial Sloan Kettering, which I kept hearing was one of the best cancer hospitals in the country, and had to begrudgingly start over. My new oncologist, upon meeting me for the first time, said he was dubious about my diagnosis, given my age and lack of symptoms, and wanted to redo my biopsy. This felt like a big step back and even further delay in treatment to me at the time, but we redid everything, and with the biopsy reconfirming my original diagnosis, I have resumed chemo, which I have been told I will be on indefinitely. That's the other part of my age that is hard, especially when navigating this journey virtually on my own. I've always felt like I hadn't had the authority to question any decisions that were being made because I am young. I'm also a young woman interacting with mainly older male doctors. It wasn't until I began connecting with other cholangio patients and survivors that I realized how important and necessary it is to self-advocate on this journey. I remember sitting in the waiting room at Memorial Sloan Kettering, where I now receive treatment, and meeting my now friend and fellow cholangio warrior Stephanie for the first time. She had been following my journey on social media and shared her own with me. She reminded me of what the term warrior means: to fight for yourself and never take no for an answer, to not just resign yourself to one opinion, but to continually seek out new ones, and with that, alternative forms of treatment. I have learned the hard way that you have to be an active and vocal participant in this journey. You have to advocate for yourself. And this is not something I was used to doing as a chronic people pleaser. I didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings or question anyone's authority, but in doing so, I was only hurting myself. I don't regret any of the decisions I have made along this journey because each has taught me a valuable lesson that I have been able to share in turn with others. Each time I post a video learning something new, whether it be about a new procedure, a clinical trial, or even if it's just a video in tears expressing my frustration, I feel like I'm helping at least one other person in their journey. Going into this diagnosis, I didn't know anything. I felt like each step in the process was like fumbling around for a light switch in the dark. I want to help others navigate this journey or whatever journey they may be on in any way that I can, and I hope in being vulnerable and open about my experience, I'm able to do that. Thank you again for letting me share my experience today and for cultivating such an amazing community that I'm very proud to be a part of.
So great to share your story. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Is that your brother?
Oh, yes, that is so fun.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
So that's why we're here. I think that really highlights, as the other stories have yesterday, as I was saying earlier, that urgency of why we need to make progress.